Okay, so we just looked at how General Douglas MacArthur, who's a U.S. general, is going to go ahead and implement an island hopping strategy in the Pacific. So in the Pacific, the other side of the war, where you're fighting the Japanese Empire, we're going to take weaker islands, and then we're going to go and we're going to take the stronger islands that get us closer to Japan. So in the last years of the war, by the beginning of 1943, the tide of battle has turned against the Axis. So Germany, Italy, and Japan are starting to lose, and what you're going to see is the Allies are really going to start advancing in Europe. So by September 1943, the Allies invaded, and they invaded Italy from Sicily. And this is going to be called like Operation Torchlight. And so we're going in from North Africa, and we're going to launch an amphibious, a water invasion, into Italy from Sicily. And once we're into Sicily, we're going to be freeing Italy as we go. Mussolini gets arrested, but he's freed by the Germans. And so the Germans come in and they rescue Mussolini. And what we're going to see in Italy is a very slow Allied advancement. And Rome doesn't actually fall until June 4th, 1944. And really what you're seeing in June of 1944 is where the Allies are actually advancing pretty far into Europe. And so we're going to have, D-Day, June 6, 1944. June 6, 1944, it's called D-Day, and it's just date to be determined. That's all it means. And so at the storming of the beaches of Normandy, France, the United States and Britain, along with all of our allies, are going to launch a major invasion of the mainland of Europe. Part of the reason why we're having to do this is Joseph Stalin is getting hit constantly by the German army, and he asks for Britain and the United States to go ahead and open up another front. And the other front that's going to be opened up is here at Normandy, France. So the United States and the British will launch a major, massive Allied invasion of mainland Europe. So by the time we get on the beaches, General Rommel, who's a German general, has really fortified the beaches. I mean, he's got pillboxes, which are basically concrete boxes where you have machine gunners in there. He's got all kinds of landmines. He's got sea mines out there. And so the beaches at Normandy are extremely deadly, and a lot of our soldiers who get on there aren't going to make it off. Matter of fact, most of the a good number of them will die because they drown. They have about 100 pounds of equipment on them, because when you get into Normandy, you're going to be moving, you're going to be on your feet, and you're going to have to be freeing the Nazi-occupied France as you move along. So you would want to have all the supplies you possibly could on you. Paris is going to fall in late August, so Vichy, France is going to be freed. By March 1945, we are going to cross into Germany. In the East, Germany their last real big kind of push into the Soviet area is going to be lost, and then the Soviets are starting to occupy Warsaw, Poland by January 1945. What you're really seeing is Hitler is having to retreat further and further into Germany, and so he does start the retreat into his Berlin bunker in January 1945. And the Allies are pushing in from the east, they're pushing in from the west, and they're pushing in from the southern part of Germany. And so we're basically sandwiching him in. I mean, he really doesn't have much opportunities to kind of get out. And so Mussolini is going to be killed by the Italians April 28th. He's hung, and his mistresses as well. Hitler is going to commit suicide April 30th with his new wife, Eva Braun. And she drinks poison. He kills himself, and he kills his dog. And then Germany will actually surrender May 7th. So Nazi Germany is over May 7th, 1945. But this is just the European aspect of the actual war. You have still the Pacific that you still have fighting going on. So in the European theater of war, the war is over. But the Germans, they're now defeated, and now we have to kind of start focusing on how we're going to help Germany once the war is over. So the defeat of Japan is going to be a little bit harder. The Japanese have taken pretty much all the Pacific islands in the area, and they've fortified all of them. And we are doing the island hopping, where we're going from weaker islands to stronger islands to get to the mainland of Japan. Harry S. Truman is going to become the new president of the United States. Franklin Delano Roosevelt did something that was unprecedented. He actually ran and won for 4 terms. So remember, no president other than FDR has actually served more than 2 terms. So he gets actually elected to be the next president in November 1944. And in 1945, in April, he dies, and he just has a massive stroke. So what ends up happening is the Vice President, Harry S. Truman, who is a World War I veteran, now becomes the new President of the United States. And Truman will finish up the war. So Roosevelt's out, and that's going to be kind of a different situation that's going to go on, because Truman absolutely does not trust Stalin. Roosevelt kind of thinks he's got Stalin like under his thumb. He kind of thinks that he can control Stalin, and Truman and Stalin are just absolutely resolute that they do not want to work together. And, part of it is Truman does not like communism, and he doesn't trust Stalin, and who would trust him? And so they're not going to get along, and this is going to cause some tension right here in April 1945 that's going to dictate some of this Cold War that we're going to see after World War II is over. So Truman is going to decide to use the atomic bomb that the United States is developing in the Manhattan Project. So the Manhattan Project was a project that takes America's best and brightest scientists, and they are building a weapon that can split the atom and can cause massive death, massive destruction. So Robert Oppenheimer and Einstein and all these scientists are being gathered, and they're being gathered at the Manhattan Project. It's in New Mexico. It's top secret. Nobody's supposed to know we're building this. Nobody's supposed to have any inside word. FDR never tells anyone, and Truman doesn't actually know until the day he's sworn in as president. When the atomic bomb is actually ready, Oppenheimer and the group, they feel like the bomb's ready. They feel like they could actually use it against a human population. They warn Truman that the bomb has amazing power, and that it should not actually be used on a human population. But Truman decides to go ahead and use the atomic bomb anyway against the Japanese people. He's got reasons for why he does it. The Battle of Okinawa has occurred, and it is a bloody, awful battle. And a lot of the Marines who land at Okinawa do not come home. The Battle of Iwo Jima is another really bad battle, again, where a lot of our Marines have not come home. The Japanese do not believe in taking prisoners of war, the POWs. They have them. They kind of think it's like a dishonorable thing for a soldier to go ahead and surrender. And the Japanese have this mentality of, I'm going to kill as many people with me when I go out. So the Japanese, when they do surrender, it's always fake, because they'll blow themselves up and anybody else. And so the death tolls in the Japanese theater of war are very, very high. And so when Truman looks, and he looks at the Marines that we have dying in the Pacific, he decides it is time to go ahead and use the atomic bomb. And so he's going to use the atomic bomb at Hiroshima and Nagasaki. There is some debate on where they actually dropped the bomb. Harry L. Stinson, who is one of the secretaries, the advisors to the president, he actually advises not to hit Kyoto. Kyoto is an ancient city. It's a historical city in Japan. And so instead we're going to hit Hiroshima, which is a military target, August 6, 1945. Everybody is certain that the Japanese will go ahead and surrender. We think like the next minute they're actually going to surrender. They don't. August 7th comes, they don't surrender. August 8th, they're not surrendering. So August 9th, 1945, we'll send another atomic bomb into another Japanese city at Nagasaki. And after that, the Japanese people beg the government, please surrender unconditionally. And so they do. So August 4th, 1945, is VJ Day, Victory over Japan. And so VE Day is victory over Europe, and VJ Day is victory over Japan. And so Japan, August 14th, 1945, goes ahead and surrenders unconditionally. World War II is over. The Allies have come out the winners. You have possibly 50 million who die in World War II, and about 17 million in battle. So the new order in Europe, you got to go from the Nazi Empire. The Nazi Empire was all the way to the English Channel to the outskirts of Moscow. So when Hitler is conquering, he conquers a lot of areas, and he conquers them pretty quick. It's not really organized. It's not got like a real big system. It's not really governed efficiently, because remember, the Fuhrer has absolute power, and so he makes all the decisions, all the calls. The plans for the Aryan racial empire, there's a lot of racial profiling. I mean, he has like the amount of Aryan you are on charts, and he's got it down to a percent. So the Nordics are good, the Danes, the Norwegians. The Latins would be inferior, and the Latins would be like the French, and the Slavs are even more inferior, so that would be Eastern Europe. Himmler was in charge of the German resettlement in the East, so he's the one who takes the Aryans and he puts them into the Eastern European zones. And so he evacuates inferior Slavs, so he takes their places, their homes, their furniture, their whatever it was that was of any value, and he replaces it with Germans. And so the German people take all this land. The Slavs, the Poles, the Russians, the Ukrainians are supposed to be used as slave labor in the factory systems of Nazi Germany. They do use foreign workers in the Nazi Empire, so you get 7 million work in Germany. Another 7 million are forced to work elsewhere in the German Empire. And millions die of neglect. I mean, they're working the human body to the exact point that it can work with very little food, and then your body has been used up, and so it's gone. It's completely dead. This is just how their system works. So the Holocaust, it was an attempt to exterminate Europe's Jews, and it's a genocide. So before the war began, there is the forced immigration of the Jews. That's the policy, so they force them to move somewhere else. But remember what I told you is that a lot of countries do not accept Jewish people. They do not have open immigration policies. They have an immigration quota system going on like the United States does. So they don't really accept them. There is a Madagascar plan. This is going to ship the Jews to the African island of Madagascar. And you got the SS, who basically have come up with this solution, the final solution. And the final solution is kill everybody. And they send out death squads or killing squads, where basically they just go ahead and they have machine gunners who go into towns and massacre the entire town. It's not very efficient, because the German soldiers who are doing this, some of them feel like it's wrong to kill the women, the children. So you have to really get hardcore SS to do this, because when I'm looking at you and I'm looking at your eyes, it does affect people a little bit different. I mean, at least it should, right? So it becomes very inefficient, and it hurt the morale of the German troops. I mean, there are troops who will refuse to keep going. So there's troops who will refuse to follow orders, and that's not something that the Nazi party and the German army actually accepts. So in order to stop it, they're going to go ahead and create these death camps. So 6 death camps are established in Poland. Auschwitz is the most famous. At these concentration camps, you have experiments going on with the Jewish people in these camps. You have gas chambers that look like shower rooms to go ahead and kill them. The Jewish people will be used to go ahead and run the actual concentration camps with the shower rooms with the cyanide poisoning that they're going to put in there. And they're going to be used to go ahead and burn the dead or bury the dead, whatever the camp was going to do. On arrival, 30% are going to be sent to the labor camps, and the rest are going to be sent to the gas chambers. You know, you go to the right, you go to the left, whichever one it's going to be, and that's where you're going to situate yourself. The Nazis do separate families on purpose, because if you're a family, you feel like you are a unit still and you can fight back, and that's not going to be tolerated in the death camps or the concentration camps.